You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
We have received your offer of surrender and reject it. We did not come to receive your supplication, but to enact judgment. The time for surrender has long passed. The verdict is writ by your own hands. Now is the time to die. Abe Dominus Nox.
Welcome, everyone, back in with another episode of Call Lore. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Jerry.
This has been a wild month.
Yep.
A wild month. So these episodes, the last episode you listened to was Helldivers, which is probably outdated, was recorded way early, and then if you followed our social media, life has happened, and we had to take a hiatus, and then that pushed back the release date of Helldivers. And so now we're in this weird kind of what month is it and what's actually happening versus what's happening while we're recording. So this is chaos.
Yeah, it is. Not the episode. But
No.
our lives.
Yeah, no. This
Yeah.
episode was supposed to be Magnus the Red, was supposed to be Thousand Suns, but we did not get to do what I wanted to do with it, nor did I get the have the time to do the amount of book reading and things that I like to do for a Primarch. And even still with the topic we're covering tonight, which is the Night Lords, I still feel underprepared, but we must go on.
Indeed. The Imperium waits for no man.
Mm-hmm.
Nor does the algorithm, nor does the chaos outside of in YouTube land.
Yep.
So
Nothing waits. Ever. March forward.
So we have we'll put a cut up, a timestamp up on the screen. If you're just listening to us, you're shit out of luck. We're going to cover the Night Lords, though. We're going to cover the Legion and the Night Lords. But first, let's go ahead and get the thing that's been kind of blew up and is probably still, actually it went quiet, but we haven't given our opinion on it. What's going on with the whole Custodes thing?
Oh.
That's
Right.
quiet now as of the release, I'm sure, unless, those sons of bitches. I'll be so fucking pissed if we release this episode and then the day before we release, they make some sort of announcement with this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just dropped one episode, so we were going to wait for because life's got a big dildo.
Yep.
And it came to us pants down with a big old smile on its face. But so that pushed our episode way back. And it gave it time to quiet down. And Games Workshop, as of time of recording, has been completely quiet about it. So has Henry Cavill, for that matter.
Oh, even still. Huh?
Yeah. And so it would be a real bitch if they release some sort of something right before we drop this. We're like, there's been nothing said. Oh, God, I hate that. That's why I also try not to cover current events, but some shit just can't be ignored. So our opinions on the whole Custodes kerfuffle.
Yes. The custodian. The custodians. Jesus. The Custodes thing.
So everybody knows, but we'll go ahead and recap it real quick. In the 10th edition codex for the Custodes, it tries to, in some stupid offhand way, just tell a short story about a custodian going through their blood games. And at the very end, or close to the end, it reveals that the custodian is in fact female. And it kind of implies or directly states that they've always been part of the 10,000. And then to double down, Games Workshop released a statement that says that this is since the beginning of the 10,000, there has always been female custodians. And then it got into this big argument about whether or not that's a complete retcon or whether it isn't, whether or not that's even possible or whether it isn't. And it's whether any of that is true, it's obvious pandering because of their deal with Amazon. The timing speaks to nothing other than whether you like it, whether you hate it. Like, guys, they're doing this because they're doing it now because of Amazon. That's the behind the curtains explanation.
Because they're making a deal for the show.
So I don't know if they're making a deal for the show. I guess there's some rumors that they want her to be in the show, which would, if they are doing Eisenhorn, that would break it because I don't believe there's a Custodes in Eisenhorn, let alone a fucking female one. But they're like, they want it. The rumor is that Amazon wanted female Space Marines so they could put them in all the marketing. They didn't like the Sisters of Battle because they have too much religious iconography, which I have really goddamn bad news for you, Amazon. If that really is their complaint, and again, this is just rumor, this could be complete bullshit, but I've not heard any other like conflicting reports. So until they give us something else, which is why I said it would be a real bitch if they do it right before we drop this, is that they wanted female, that they didn't like the Sisters of Battle and the Sisters of Silence because they were too religious, which is a real fucking bitch of a complaint to have about 40K.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, like the first thing I think of when I hear 40K, I see those cathedrals and like the Titans and stuff. And
so like if they have a problem, if they have a problem with that, if that's big putting a big B up their skirt already, we're in some serious shit.
Yeah, like because that's often how like Astartes are also supposed to be treated and spoken of and stuff like that. And if your main characters are going to be like Space Marines and people like that, like they are going to be seen in a very religious light by a lot of the people that they come across.
Yeah. What about the ecclesiarchy and
yeah.
If they're doing Eisenhorn, one of their characters is a fucking inquisitor. Like there's religious iconography literally up the yin yang.
It's all dialed up to like 12.
Yeah.
11. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, even if they want to go like tech related characters, like that's a whole religion right there.
With tons of praying and incense burning. It's Catholic as all hell.
Yes. Yeah. Catholic. Yeah. Very.
There's no way. And I mean, like, so if you were to strip its veneer and you're like, okay, the Imperium is Catholic, right? That's like what they model a lot of the practices off of, is like the way Catholics kind of structure anything. Right. If you were to like just remove all the veneer and you're like, they're Catholic, everybody else, it doesn't exactly portray Catholics in a fantastic light. So what are you getting all butthurt about?
Yeah.
And I suspected that if we were going to have a problem with translation, this might be one of them. Modern media is really going to struggle with the idea that 40K, there are good guys. Like the Imperium are the good guys. Human beings for the win. Fuck everybody else. It's our galaxy, get lost.
Take that, Xenos.
Yeah. Like, I really don't care if we've been here longer, then you shouldn't be able to get got by us. You suck.
Get good, elves.
Yeah, and everybody else.
I like that.
And it's not like elves don't contribute to chaos. So, like, I'm sorry, we haven't birthed the chaos god yet. So, no. But I knew that they would have trouble with the idea that there are no moral people in this. It's genocide or bust.
Yeah.
For all involved.
But I mean, they have morals. They're just extreme morals.
Yeah, but they're not moral as we would accept it.
Yeah.
They're willing to do things that under almost no circumstance would we consider that to be okay.
Like a morally okay thing to do.
Right.
But morals are often a product of your circumstances, you know.
Right. But because 40K is half violence, serious violence, and the other half pure satire, which our modern entertainment apparati has trouble with satire. It makes sense to me that they would be like, wow, we can't show religion in a good way. And it's like, well, you're not really showing religion in a good way. It's like, yeah, but they're the good guys. It's like, yeah, but
there's good guys in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance and complexity there that I think people like Amazon just wash right over.
Oh, yeah.
So all of those complaints, because they're ridiculous, they have that stupid whiff of true to me where I'm like, I can see that being a problem. Fuck. But the Custodes thing, it's a retcon. I hate it. It makes our job almost pointless. No, it's not our job. This is not a job. It makes what we do for fun and hopefully maybe a job later, covering 40K completely pointless.
One of the biggest appeals to diving into this lore was that, like, Ben was explaining to me, it's like, there's no retcons in 40K. It's, there can be misinformation. There can be different perspectives. There can be like things that it's said to have happened one way and then you later find out it happened another, but they're not retcons. They don't undo anything. And so I just don't like the possibility of there being just like, oh no, it's this way now and it always has been. Because then, once you toe over that line, where do you stop? And then at what point does it just, like, okay, don't hate me, but it's kind of like comics. And I feel like comics actually probably do a pretty good job, but it starts to look like, well, which version of this are you going to look at? And that's something that 40K, you just have the one version right now. And I like that.
Yeah, one of the habitual problems that comic books has had, comic books are dead. And I'm not just saying that because of the Marvel movies. Like, show me an actual brick and mortar shop that's doing well. Show me one. Put me one in the comments section. If you show me one, I'll say comic books are not dead, but they're dead. But one of the big problems that it had, one of the reasons that it was killed off, besides politics and price, all the stuff that's killing stuff right now, one of the big problems they had is where do new readers jump in at?
Right, yeah.
40K already has that problem because of its just sheer size.
Right, but it's all the same river. You jump in and you
don't need to make it more. I'm agreeing with you. You don't need to make it more complex by adding this ADBC bullshit.
Right.
Jerry, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think the purpose of what they're trying to do maybe could be done, but it like changing what is already established is not the way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like maybe making a Amazonian faction or something to be more inclusive. You could maybe do something like that, or just something more creative than just being like, well, now it's a girl.
Like give us a story that leads to this new idea that they want, or some semblance of it, whatever it is.
Like, so here's the bitch of it. I'm going to defend, like, I don't think there should be female custodians because I think so like you had the two factions that were considered to be the talons of the emperor, right? These were the custodians on one side and the Sisters of Silence on the other. And it was meant to be this female only, male only, and together they are the talons of the emperor. And you can't add one to the other without inherently taking away from the other. So if you're going to add female custodians, you're going to inherently take away what makes the Sisters of Silence that talon, right?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, we're not going to see male Sisters of Silence. Like, this is not going to go the other direction. We all know it's not going to go and I don't want it to go the other direction. I don't want to see male Sisters of Silence. I don't want to see Brothers of Battle. They have battle brothers. We already covered this shit. It's already there. There's no need to change it. But I'll even defend a position that I don't like, because again, I don't want female custodians, but it is possible.
Right.
They aren't Space Marines.
Right.
They're old, like, Dark Age technology, way beyond what anybody else was fucking with. That's why they can't even make anymore. So, you have Belisarius Call out there, who up until apparently this time, you've had no problem having him just shit out new stuff whenever you've needed him to.
Yeah.
I mean, he came with the Primaris Marines from, apparently he's like, hey, I can build Space Marines better than the Emperor out of fucking nowhere. Yeah, I had no problem with that.
Yeah.
It's the going back and being like, oh no, it's always been that way. That's where I'm like, bullshit, guys. Come on, you can't do that.
I don't think that's ever a good move for a story at all.
Like, if you want female custodians that fucking bad, fine. Do a story and make it a new thing.
Right. Put some effort into it. Do a story. Yeah.
It's this, and that's why I think it's more like it's got less to do with story purposes, got more to do with, for lack of a better term, I hate this shit. It's why you guys don't do this shit, because it just brings stuff in that we don't need. There's no need for this stuff to be in these fucking podcasts, yet here we are. Because they want to appear like they've always been inclusive to the mass audiences. They can't afford for it to be something new, because when new people come in from the Amazon series, they're just going to look and be like, oh, it's always been that way. And they're not going to realize, they're not going to realize that this is a very recent change just for this specific purpose.
Because I'll say it is really hard to tell what information, like story wise or game wise or whatever, came out when you're looking at the whole big picture. It's all one big tapestry. You don't get the there weren't Tyranids until the fucking, I don't know, early 2000s, I'm guessing.
Right, something.
Stab in the fucking dark.
Right.
But, that's kind of what we're looking at. Like, since the 80s, like, more things have come in to add to the world. And, like, I don't know when came in when. It's something I've been interested in looking at, to be honest. And, like maybe doing a meta timeline.
Meta timeline. That would be
So
cool.
I think that would be neat. But anyway. So it is, like, to your point, real difficult to tell if something has like, it's like, oh, the tower knew what
Yeah.
Like so tough to tell. It all seems so.
It's just, why make, like, if you're going to do stuff like that, well, okay, so I'm going to answer my own question. I was going to say, why make lore videos about it? And the answer is they don't want you to. They don't want people on YouTube to cover this stuff. They don't, and it's so fucking weird.
That is wild
I will never be able to understand it. They don't want people on YouTube to talk about it.
That's crazy.
They don't want these videos to exist for people to talk about them. Because they can't monetize them. They want them to go to like if you go to these websites, they have their chat room areas, right? And that's where they want all this stuff to happen.
Oh, well, whoops.
Yeah, so I'm answering my question. It's like, why, like, you make these channels that like cover your stuff pointless, because at any time this video they made could be completely wrong with no way to weave it in a story narrative. It's just like, well, this video's obsolete now.
Yeah.
And that makes it very hard for people to stay invested. I don't know. It sucks. It's lazy storytelling. It's lazy. That's why I hate it. It's lazy storytelling. Lazy as shit.
Yeah.
And it's depressing as hell, because like we need our fandoms and we need our fictional worlds to be more concrete, not less.
Right. And they have a history, interesting stories with a lot to say thematically, and like with complexity, you know what I mean? They're able to like weave a pretty complex, like once it gets this big, it's super complex, and they're able to weave it together.
40K,
so good. Like
40K can be, to a large extent, whatever you want it to be. I mean, all you have to do is look at, like, so you take Luton, right? Who's, I believe he's the biggest YouTuber, 40K YouTuber right now. His position is that the entire setting is just a big joke, satire.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I believe that was kind of the original intent of the people that set it up.
I could see that.
Right. That might have been at one point. I actually don't know that I agree with him now.
I don't think that's what it is now.
I think it's way become, and you can say that that's hilarious as a byproduct or whatever, but I think it's become way more Shakespearean in a lot of ways.
Shakespearean. Ooh.
I mean, I'm a Primarch groupie, right? So like when I come like, or Garrow.
Yeah.
Garrow's whole quest for faith is every bit the quest for the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Which, in a lot of stories, faith is the Holy Grail itself. So,
Oh, yeah.
And for Garrow, that's what it was, is his quest for faith. So like you have a retelling of the Holy Grail, and you have all kinds of crazy shit weaved in there that really makes it epic.
Yeah.
Besides the whole bombastic, crazy, over the top gore, and
which, you're telling stories, tone it up, it's fine. And like Warhammer really is in a lot of ways like a reflection of our fiction, the fiction that has existed for us for a while. Like Warhammer mirrors that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because they
a ton of ways.
Yeah.
Because they just amalgamated so much.
Right.
It's got near infinite settings, near infinite characters.
Right.
And then any story that's probably ever been told has a fresh look in the 40K universe.
Yeah. So like you don't need to make these huge overarching sweeping changes.
Not to your existing stuff. Make them with your new stories. Like there's room for them.
Oh, hell yeah.
There's room for them. It's there. Like I always see the stuff on the internet, like people saying like Warhammer ripped off Dune, and it's like you can see that in the skeleton, like there's a lot of Dune in there, but like there's just so much else to it. There you could say they're ripping off just about anything, because there's a lot of symmetry and allusions and references and stuff that exist in our own fiction and stuff. You could say that about like Tolkien's work. You could say that Warhammer ripped off Tolkien's work.
So you could say it ripped off Dune, but and I would have a tough time kind of arguing against that. But I think to use the word ripped off is to imply a level of amateur slapdashness that I feel like you would have to be really disingenuous with how good they've done with the stuff that they've chosen to take from all these different worlds. And they didn't just do it, Dune and real history, like
it ignores the amount of creativity that when they actually put into it. Yeah.
Sly Marbo.
I can't wait to cover Sly Marbo.
You have our universe where you're like, they ripped off Dune and they ripped off Rambo, if you're going to use that criteria. And I would say that they just what they did was they took the stuff from all these different worlds that they really liked and purposely ripping off to me feels like they're trying to hide the ball and trying to take credit somewhere. And I don't feel like they were trying to do that at all. I feel like they were like, if you were to talk to the original creators and you were to point your finger at them and be like, you took that from Dune, they'd be like, yup. Yes, sir. You got the story.
Did you notice that, huh?
Yeah. So in a fictional world such as this, there's just no need to make stuff up whole hog. And it's not like you're impatient. That's another reason why it feels like Amazon to me. It's not like they're impatient. It's not like they're like, well, we're in a real big hurry to do this, so we just got to get them out now.
Right.
They don't do that.
Right. They take their time.
They make you wait 9-10 years for the sequel to a book. Like, they're not in a fucking rush. So what is the hurry to just blanket liquid paper over all this shit? Ugh. And to try to claim like you're not, it's just like, please, people aren't stupid. When you open up the codex, the old codex, and like one of the big titles of the Custodians is the Brotherhood of Demigods. And Brotherhood is like in big, bold words. Very well. But also, I'm just saying, Games Workshop, if what you're saying is true, then by your own logic, there has not been a female custodian character worth writing about since the 80s.
Ooh. Oh.
So which is it? Are they just now important, or are you making that shit up?
Call it out.
Yeah, your choice. Because that's what we have to accept. Oh no, they've always been there. It's just every single monumental stand that the Custodians has ever made. You know, when it was literally 1,000 of them versus 10 million demons in the webway? Well, somebody had to go bring their sweat towels.
Oh my God.
Because apparently they weren't worth writing about in the fight. It's like, okay, sure, whatever. Treat us all like morons. Thanks. So we're here to talk about the Night Lords.
Yeah, Night Lords.
Lords of the Night.
So this is where that timestamp took you to if you clicked it.
Yeah.
And it, again, if you were just listening, this is a YouTube show primarily.
I'm so sorry, guys.
You should follow us on YouTube.
I'm so sorry. I'll try to see if I could do a timestamp in the description if you look there.
People don't look in the description.
And I'm telling them far too late if they do.
Oh.
Whoops.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
Edit that back to the beginning.
Yeah, I guess I have
fuck
that
them.
kind of. Okay.
Absolutely fuck them. I have said from the very get-go that any listeners, I'm not actually shitting on people, but I can't afford to keep track of all this crap. But the downloads that we get from the actual podcast place, that's all extra to me. I don't even when they're like, you got over 2,000 downloads. I'm like, we don't have that many followers. They're like, that's not what that means. I'm like, okay. Right.
No, I love you, audio only listeners, just so you know.
I don't
appreciate
understand
all of you. Wow. I mean, we do. It is pretty neat watching the visual stuff, you know.
Well, okay.
Definitely worth looking at.
So, I'm just functionally retarded. I don't know.
What?
But I'll put it on YouTube even when I'm not watching it. I don't like.
Oh yeah.
I don't like the other pod apps. I don't like having multiple apps to listen. I want to just go to one thing, and I want to be able to have the visual element, and then I can just shut off my screen and not look at it if I don't want to.
Right. Be able to have both.
Whenever I listen on the podcast thing, I feel like I'm missing out on the visuals, so I switch to the YouTube.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, it's just every once in a while there might be something where I'm like, hey, what is that? And I'll quickly peek over to see what the image is so that I have a frame of reference.
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just, it's not that I don't love our audio only podcast listeners. It's that I don't understand them.
Thank you guys for being there anyway.
Listen, you are under no obligation for me to understand you to enjoy our content.
Right.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Fucking weirdos.
So the Night Lords.
They are actually probably my favorite Traitor Legion. I do like the Death Guard though. The Death Guard and the Night Lords often fight for first.
The Night Guard was probably your first.
The Death Guard?
Did I say the Death Guard?
You said the Night Guard.
The Night Guard. I combined them. They're the best.
We already know that can't happen because Nurgle noped out. You need to look at our Temptation of Talos video.
Yes. So the Night Lords, I think, were your first love, weren't they? As far as traitors go, Traitor Legions.
I actually think I like the Death Guard first.
Did you?
Because I kind of like how they're jovial but depressed.
Yeah, that would appeal to you.
That is rather hilarious to me. But It was the Night Lords trilogy, which was like the second or third books that I got into.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I love these guys. But the Traitor books do that to me. The World Eaters and both the World Eaters and the Word Bearers, I really liked their books and I kind of fell for the characters. And then with the Loyalist Legions, I find that I don't necessarily fall for the characters so much, but I fall for their cause.
That makes sense. I haven't read nearly as many books as you have, but I've certainly I get that. Yeah, I can see that. It is much more like, oh, this is what we're fighting for when it's the Loyalists, but it's the personalities that you get to know along the way when it's the traitors. Yeah.
That is very much how And I think that's because if you want your audience to like characters that are doing such horrific shit, you really have to work on the characters themselves.
Right.
And so and I do think sometimes that might make people misinterpret what the authors are trying to do with the books. Like I have seen some complaints where they're trying to make the traitors too sympathetic. And I'm like, well, I don't think they're sympathetic. I've read, is it Betrayer? The one where Angron, the Angron story with him and Logar.
Uh-huh.
I've read that one a lot. And I've read First Heretic, the Logar story a lot, like 3 or 4 times. I've done quite a few of the Traitor books over and over again. And while I like the characters, I never once went, you know what? They're in the right. So maybe you guys just have a hard time being like, I like this person, even though they're
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or whatever. Although I felt sympathetic towards several of them, or I think I remember feeling sympathetic to them, not
on an individual level, but not as a mass.
Never saying this is the right cause. This is the right thing. But I don't know. That's like looking at, you brought up Shakespeare earlier, he wrote tragedies, and oftentimes the hero of the story is the cause of their own downfall. They're also pretty much their own villain.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Hamlet ends up going that direction.
Yeah. And stuff like that. And are you going to say that about tragedies that
So that's Magnus. We haven't covered him yet. Magnus, out of all the Traitor Primarchs, he's probably the one that's tragic.
Although a lot of these guys, I'm getting very tragedy as a genre vibes from a lot of the Chaos guys.
Not tragic as in sad, but
tragedy
as in
the story, the
drama.
Yeah.
Sure, but I also don't think that makes their cause that doesn't make them
agreeable. You would agree with their goals.
I don't know how to say what I'm saying. I can be sympathetic towards how they got that way while still being but just like Old Yeller. You gotta go down.
Yeah.
Does it really matter if they're sympathetic in the end? I don't see how it does. That doesn't make them more negotiable.
Right. In the practical sense, I agree with you. Old Yeller, horrible metaphor and all. So,
but when you're reading, I think that has to be, that kind of practical thinking has to be somewhat necessary if you're going to be able to indulge a story that's being told from the bad guy's point of view,
right?
Without either getting lost in the sauce and coming out going, they're actually the good guys, those fucking idiots that tried to do the the independent contractors on the Death Star. It's what about them? They got killed. Yep.
Building a super weapon.
Fuck out of them. Mm-hmm. Sure did. And they're war novels. So somebody is going to be morally wrong and you're allowed to like them, but that doesn't mean that because you like them means that somehow they're in the right. I just find these translations to be ridiculous.
And that it's not going to lead the reader or the viewer astray in their own morals,
It shouldn't.
Right. It shouldn't.
If it does, it's not on the writer. It's not the writer's responsibility to make that a consideration.
Right.
The why does not stop the what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Admirable, but mistaken, right? No, I don't care how justified you feel that you are.
There's a lot of things about the Night Lords that I disagree with on a very fundamental level in my morals. It's
do you?
Yes, and no, but yes.
You know what? So to lead into the Night Lords, Jerry walked up to me this morning and he goes, I kind of agree with the Night Lords and that makes me very upset.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm they're right and I'm mad about it.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
And that that is probably one of the contributing factors to me really liking the Night Lords. They feel that they were cheated, and I'm not necessarily sure that they were wrong.
Yeah.
I think they were cheated.
Yeah.
At least the first few crops of the Night Lords were cheated. But what do I mean by that?
Yes.
Jerry, why don't you go ahead and take us into what is the early establishing records of the Night Lords?
All right, I got you. Let's get into the first recruits of the Night Lords.
Ooh.
So way back in the day, in ancient Terra, there were prison sinks. Do you guys know about those?
Is that where you like wash
the prison hands?
No, it's not. It's not very clean. It's not a clean situation.
No, they're underground. They're basically like prison pits, kind of like what you saw in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, they're like these extended like caverns where the prisoners would be just sentenced to live down there. Men, women, children, they're all just down there.
Mole people.
Lawless.
Just in a cave for the rest of forever?
Yeah, these vast caverns, and like they're fed by the hive cities. So if you fuck up there, the prison is where you're going.
Yeah,
these caverns.
Yeah, so they would just drop you off down there, and you would it would be like a subs in the Arbites.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, this is kind of before that, but
yeah,
there would be no law. It would just be
banishment
insane.
to a cave.
Yeah, and there's no light either. No form of civilization besides what the really, really awful prisoners establish.
And in these really bleak places, there are children born. So these children grow up in this like terrible, crime-ridden, awful place, and they get they're like pale and they really get silent. They don't speak a lot.
They don't. Yeah, they don't speak hardly, if ever. Their eyes are all black. It's where the Night Lords get that genetic heritage from: the black eyes and the pale skin with the black hair.
Okay.
And that gets further enhanced later.
Yes, it does.
But like by the gene seed, when they get these children were chosen by the Emperor to be the first of the 8th Legion.
Okay.
Which is the Night
They
Lords.
had a name for them. What were they called?
Children of the Night. Was that it?
The Night Children.
The Night Children.
Yeah, the Night Children.
Damn.
And they were actually they had the reputation. So like the other prisoners, when their night cycle would come out, like whatever their version of nighttime would be, they would it would be like, go inside, shut and lock your doors. Cause like all these psychopaths and other criminals would just shy away from these children because these children were considered to be like feral and evil even beyond these guys.
I was born in the darkness.
Yes. So like, even though they were children, they were like the predators of the prison when night settled.
That's wild. Ew.
And then when they were given that gene seed, it like enhanced their paleness, and their night vision was like extremely enhanced. So much so that like the sun would like hurt their eyes. They had to have like baffles and like filters and stuff to protect their eyes
from the sun.
So they were like constantly in darkness.
Okay. And we do see that later on in Night Lord.
Yep.
Space Marines.
And I believe they still rock the name the Children of the Night.
Or the Night Children?
The Night Children.
Yeah.
I mean, until Conrad. I believe that's what they're...
I think so.
Yes. Not to jump ahead any.
So when it came to the Unification Wars, the Emperor would use them to make examples of rebels.
Make examples of them?
Yes. Like there was the Saragorn Enclave that did gene atrocities. The Court of Antius did psyker breeding, and there was something called the March of 10 Million.
Yeah, the records on these are pretty bare bones, though. Like what a lot of that was, and what did the Night Children actually do to them? I don't believe is recorded.
No, it just says that they would do things. They were like morally black and white. So they would if there was a crime or something, they would just punish it with death.
Yep.
Okay.
And they were most often sent after people that were loyal and then betrayed that loyalty. So they weren't a lot of times used as like liberation troops. They were more used as enforcement.
Right. Enforcement and deterrent.
Which I believe leads more credence to that. If Conrad had not been corrupted by chaos, the Night Lords would have been the Imperium's police force with Conrad as like judge.
Yeah.
I think that speaks more to that.
So that's what the Emperor used them for, was to spank the rebels.
Spank the rebels.
Oh, that's not, yeah. Sure.
Yikes.
But that brings us to Nostromo.
Nostromo.
Yes, this is the planet that Conrad Kurz landed on with his Hellpod.
His hell pod.
His hell pod.
That twilighty industrial hellhole.
Yeah, it's like a sunless hive world. It's corrupt and it's wealthy because it has adamantine mines in it.
Ooh, a special metal. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's circled by a dim dying star that can't penetrate because of the smog and the pollution.
So right. Weak star and thick cover.
And the people there don't have irises because it's so dark. Nope, they just have pupils.
They have the black eyes just like the children from the prison.
Oh.
The population is kept in check. Like it doesn't have like high population because it's so depressing that most people just kill themselves.
Yep. Suicide is the number one cause of death in Nostromo.
So was the eye thing, is that played out as a coincidence, or is that some sort of like a little bit of fate or chaos, trickery?
So the black eyes. So I imagine for Nostromans is they still had the white, whereas the Night Lords, it's just pure black.
Right.
But I'm betting the black eyes is probably not common, but it's probably not an uncommon mutation for humans to have.
Right.
I'm betting there's tons of low light worlds.
Right. Okay.
So coincidence, yeah, but also like, is there coincidence when you're dealing with chaos and the Primarchs and time travel and all that goofy shit? And then you combine with that on top of it that the Night Lords really don't have a whole lot of books out there.
No.
So yes. Anyway,
when Conrad landed on this planet, this is what's important. He sort of went straight into the core of it. So there was this crater kind of situation where he had smashed through the planet's crust.
Yep.
Lord.
And he was down in there. And so they sort of covered up that hole and we're like, this is like a no-go zone. Like they sort of like band-aided it.
Yeah, it's because I mean, can you imagine? So me and Eric covered Conrad a long time ago. We need to revisit him. But when he came out, like he swam through molten lava.
Yeah.
So can you imagine these people? They just see this thing, pow, right into their crust. And while they're like, what the fuck is that? Out crawls a molten demon baby. It's just like, just coming out of there. You're like, what the fuck?
Nope.
Run.
It's no wonder that whole area, they're just like, don't go there. There's just evil. A baby crawled out of it. And that thing was skinning motherfuckers for years. We're assuming there's bigger shit. Just somebody get in a crib. Just no shit come out of there. They probably prayed that nothing else crawled out of that hole.
And they don't get to see so much light on this planet. So the glowing lava, they would probably be like,
coming off.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I can't look at this.
It would hurt their eyes.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of a demon Primarch baby covered in molten lava just come crawling out there. Black hair hanging like the Ring, but it's still the size of a toddler, just coming out. Just God almighty.
Waddling after them. Dripping lava.
And then they would have no idea that it only gets scarier from there.
Yeah, like that was easy mode. Jesus.
Nice.
But that is important, that the fact that he punched through that crust.
Yeah, that crater that they band-aided is might come up later.
Yes, I'm sure that it will.
It might.
So Conrad does his thing where he's the Primarch thing.
Yep.
He takes over the planet.
Yep.
His big thing is ruling by fear, and it causes all of that crime and corruption to cease because people are scared.
Yeah.
Right.
So all that stops. So the Emperor comes, and his whole retinue and everything is he's so bright that some people, if they dare to look at him, they go blind.
Right.
Yeah. They've got the night eyes.
Yeah. And then he takes Conrad. He's like, come with me. Conrad is like, I think I've seen this.
It's a rerun. Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, had he basically seen everything in the future? Did he already know?
Yeah. So Conrad knew from the moment he was born, basically. He saw the Horus Heresy. He saw his own death. He saw all of that with no reference to any of it whatsoever.
Yeah.
You combine that with the fact that he also grew up with no parents, no family, no friends, no nothing, just completely isolated. And that is why that I say, despite Mortarion, despite Angron, despite all that, I think Conrad had the worst upbringing.
Yeah.
It's because not only, like, even Angron and Mortarion found companionship.
Right.
Conrad found nothing until the Emperor showed up. And it paired all that with his visions of the Horus Heresy and his own death.
Yeah, he grew up on the streets, like just killing people.
He learned how to speak by eating corpses and learning to talk which also, were the corpses of criminals.
Yeah.
So that was his frame of reference each time. Yep.
And
that's the way the Emperor found him.
Yeah. Which led to him rejoining the Night Lords.
Yeah. He studied with Fulgrim, and then he names his legion the Night Lords around that time.
Yep. Him and Fulgrim were friends right up until Fulgrim told Rogel Dorn that Conrad had the gift of foresight.
Mm-hmm.
And Rogel basically cornered Conrad about it, and then Conrad beat the shit out of him and left.
Jeez. He got imprisoned.
For the first time.
Mm-hmm. He has the Legion decorate their armor with the images designed to instill fear.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. They really want to instill fear in all of their enemies. And
they hang skulls and body parts and faces and skin.
Even on their vehicles, they put like the flayed flesh of people on them. And
Yep.
Yeah. Fear is the doctrine.
And speaking of, the Night Lords developed a very particular doctrine, which is when they would invade a planet, they would pick a single planet out of the system, and they would, one at a time, kidnap every man, woman, and child on that planet, and then skin them alive while broadcasting audio and visual recordings to all the surrounding planets as a demonstration of what will happen should they make the Night Lords come to their planet.
Yeah. They were like the Emperor's terrorists. Kind of.
Yeah, very much so. Honestly, they would come in, just do brutal things to a few and make sure that the many knew about it.
And that actually prevented them from getting into a lot of fights.
Yeah.
It did. They actually had some of the lowest kill counts of any legion because of that.
Right. So is that why you said earlier that they are right, Jerry?
Yes. Yeah. I'm not happy about it.
Right.
But they saved a lot of lives by taking some lives.
Yeah. In horrendous fashion.
In horrible, just terrible ways.
Like that's not a way to go, man.
Yeah. And unfortunately it doesn't work.
That was going to be my counter though. It's like they aren't really right because it doesn't seem to hold up once the threat's gone.
Yes. Actually, it gets worse because later on, without Conrad, Nostromo kind of descends back into lawlessness and corruption because he's not there to make everyone afraid.
Exactly.
And the gangs gain power again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then this is also where he's getting his recruits from.
Yeah.
And they start to degrade from being like the youths that he was getting.
Starts filling his legion with criminals.
And
he was getting like the family members of the upper crust.
Yeah.
Night Lord most directly responsible for that bullshit his name is Gandor Shrievac.
Shrievac.
And my favorite Night Lord's name is Sevatar. Sevatar, or Django Sevatar. Django Sevatarian, full name. But he is even during the fall of the Night Lords, he is what the Night Lords were supposed to be. He believed in the mission. He believed that they were sparing lives.
Fear as a tool to win.
Right.
Yeah.
Shrievac is the direct opposite of that.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, this asshat thought that it was that because the neophytes and the people that becoming the Space Marines were like lower, that it was okay to populate them with the lower dregs of society, not realizing that he was poisoning his own fucking family tree. What a fucking putz. What an idiot. And that's why he got one of the best deaths, well-deserved. It was fucking awesome. He had a demon-possessed sword that made him a really good swordsman, way better than what he was. And so during the siege of Terra, he's out there just slaying fools and duel after duel after duel. And every time he'd kill somebody, he would just start talking shit there's nobody that can beat me. And the demon started getting a little pissed that he was just calling out his own name and not giving the demon any credit. Mm-hmm. So the demon just went, "Nah, I'm good," and just sat out one. Just wouldn't let him use the sword or the power from it. And it is against a blood angel named Ralderon, which is a really bad opponent for that to happen to because he's the real deal. and he just basically throws Trivac off of one of the palace walls, which are, tens of miles high.
They're very, very, very big.
And he actually survives the fall.
Whoa.
And the demon's like, well, I'm back, and since you're dying, I'm here to collect your soul because we made that deal, remember? Because you're an asshole and you're so afraid of pain because I can feel it, I'm going to really, really make this hurt.
Oh.
But by the end of it, you're going to be something that we can actually use.
Oh.
And so he'll eventually probably return to the lore as some type of demon whenever they decide to give the Night Lord some love.
Horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes his soul into the warp, and I'm like, good. Have your way with him. Fucking dipshit.
That is horrifying, but that's like everything that like childhood Eric was afraid of in hell, like, oh God, get just the eternity of torment and being made into something that you're not. And damn Catholic guilt. It was terrifying.
Anyway.
The Night Lords.
The Night Lords.
They, had method. They had like skinning pits.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, crucifying whole cities and stuff like that. Just through atrocity, they would get people to...
Just one after another.
Yeah.
And this caught the ire of a lot of the other legions.
Yeah, they were not liked by the other legions.
No, not even the other Traitor Legions really liked them, which was fine because they didn't like the other legions either.
And it did kind of bring to the forefront that interesting debate between like, well, yeah, we killed them this horrible way, but you're killing like way, way, way more.
And more expensive too to do all that work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the only counter argument is that it doesn't seem to last very long.
Yeah. It's not a stable way to build.
And Conrad,
counterproductive.
All while this is happening, Conrad knew that his legion was being poisoned. He could tell that the quality of troops was declining. They were not responding to orders. They were just doing shit to do shit.
They didn't sort of believe in the cause, really. They just doing the torturing.
Yeah, it became fear for its own sake.
Yep, the Night Lords ceased putting up any infrastructure once they were done.
Right.
They wouldn't go in and set up anything on the other planets. They would just come in, brutalize a planet or the entire system, even if they didn't need to.
Yeah.
And then they just fuck off and leave it basically for somebody else to
deal with.
Yep. And Conrad could have stopped it.
Yeah.
At any time. Unfortunately for him, he was stuck in that whole what will be mode.
Yep.
And so he just thought, well, my legion is going to be poisoned and there's nothing I can do about it. My legion will be poisoned. There's nothing I can do about it. My legion is being poisoned. There's nothing I can do about it. My legion is poisoned. There's only one thing I can do about it. And that's just because that's the only version of that outcome that he saw in his precognition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what led to the...
Yeah, he gets into it with Rogel Dorn, and because Rogel didn't like his methods. And then he was imprisoned, and when he was in prison, I think is when he learned that Nostromo had fallen into just complete disrepair without him.
Well, anytime Conrad finds out something, you have to consider it only a marker because he already saw it all.
Yeah,
he knew he could have killed Trivac at any point. He could have gone back to Nostromo and restructured. He knew that the gangsters were going to turn once he left. He knew all of that. So he could have stopped it at any point.
Could have changed these things, but since he believed that the fate was set in stone.
Yeah, he just didn't.
Yep, he didn't. So he escapes. He leaves a trail of bodies, and then he gets back on his ship, and he takes his legion to Nostromo.
Yep.
And remember that crater that he came in on?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The one that cracked the crust
down to the core, didn't it? Yeah.
He did a orbital barrage with Lance.
He did the orbital laser from Helldivers. Only times 50.
Yeah, straight into that hole.
Oh.
And he destabilized the core of the planet, and the planet just...
Oh, wow. He did a Death Star.
Yeah, he did a Exterminatus.
Yeah. Yep. Only it took it was basically his entire fleet just unloading into one spot.
Jeez.
Which, I mean, horrifying, but that would have looked boss.
Yeah. And actually, a lot of people probably got an easier death than I would have expected from Night Lords and the Night Haunter.
Oh yeah, if you were within 10 miles of that, you were probably dead before you even realized what was happening.
Yeah, but even just being on a planet that's, shaken up now that bad, it probably won't take long before you're smashed or blown up.
That's a quicker, better death than you were likely to get on Nostromo itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
So
not so bad.
See, solving problems.
Yeah, solving problems.
Practical way.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's when he
goes renegade.
Yeah, he either goes renegade or may have been called back to Terra.
So at that point, he gets the recall from the Emperor, but decides to ignore it.
Okay.
Oh.
And then he just goes hopscotching across the galaxy, butchering shit for fun, just kind of out in the ether doing his own thing until he gets a call from Horus.
Yes.
And Horus, of course, is
of course. That got me. I don't know.
has gone traitor and has a proposition for Conrad, which of course Conrad accepts almost immediately without question because he feels like he doesn't have any other choice anyway. It's what he's supposed to do.
He saw it coming.
So this is where the Night Lords and Conrad kind of separate. So there's the Drop Site Massacre.
Yeah.
They are in that. I'm not going to cover that because we cover it ad nauseum every time we cover a Primarch. There's the Drop Site Massacre.
Yeah.
If you want to know what the Drop Site Massacre is, it's the first engagement between the traitor forces and the loyalist forces, in which case the Iron Hands, the Raven Guard, and the Salamanders were practically wiped out. Ferrus Manus was killed, the Primarch of the Iron Hands. He was decapitated. Vulcan was taken prisoner by Conrad, and Corvus Corax managed to escape. Conrad is off on his own for a long time, either torturing Vulcan, trying to make him crack, or he's waging a half-ass war on Macragge during the whole Imperium Secundus event. And while all that's going on, the Night Lords are waging a war against the Dark Angels, which is called the Thramas Crusade, which is where they spend the bulk of the Horus Heresy, is really trying to impede and slow down the Dark Angels. And that's a tall order. The Dark Angels, the first, have access to Dark Age technology. Their gene seed is considered to be some of the most stable. They have the most experienced soldiers because they were the first. The Night Lords lose the Thramas Crusade, but only because they were punching way above their weight, trying to take on the first. And especially because the first, the way they fight is just not going to be conducive for the Night Lords to try to win against. But to their credit, they keep them out of the Horus Heresy a lot.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So Conrad does show back up and issues a challenge basically to the Lion on a planet called Sagawalsa. And this is where the Thramas Crusade basically ends. They have a duel. Conrad gets his spine snapped by the Lion, and then I believe his throat also gets cut.
Ouch.
Him and a couple of Night Lords get taken prisoner. That's where the Imperium Secundus comes in. This is the Lion, Guilliman, and Sanguinius set up a separate empire because they believe the Emperor is killed. I'm not going to get into that either because I really want to read the books for that and tackle that in its own episode. And also, it seems like it's going to have some pretty far-reaching ramifications in the future because the ecclesiarchy are just giant bag of dicks rolled in onions. I don't know. For some reason, they think that's a problem. They think
You're
that's
not the Emperor.
Yeah,
so
they think that's heresy. So now that Guilliman's back, if they were to find out that he tried to set up a separate empire, they would be pissed. Even though he legitimately thought the Emperor was dead in the exact second
that he found out that he was alive.
They canceled the whole thing.
Yeah.
And started to head towards Terra. So I'm I don't understand what the problem is. But nevertheless, it seems like it's going to cause a problem. So I am kind of waiting to see if that develops. Although with the way they move things at a snail's pace, we'll probably need to do that. We also need to do that if we're going to cover. We need to do that for Guilliman, the Lion, and Sanguinius. So that's probably going to have to be on a short list soon. But that led to basically the Night Lords operating very heavily without Conrad.
Right.
And when they finally got him back, he was not in good condition.
Right.
And so Savitar takes over the Night Lords. And he makes a decision that will stand for the Night Lords basically for the rest of the Horus Heresy and the Great Scouring and well into the 42nd millennium until we get into where they currently reside, is that he decides to break the Legion up into 6 grand companies so that they can't all be like massacred in one big hit.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And he decides that he's going to take his group and he's going to back up the Horus at the Siege of Terra, but he gives all the other permission to wage the war as they see fit or don't.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the Night Lords, there's not a whole lot of great documentation about what happens after that. We know that Savitar obviously was at the Siege of Terra. A character that I really like, whose name is Lucarfus. He becomes a leader of a cult called the Bleeding Eyes, but they specialize in like aerial assaults. He was one of the first Traitor Legion to land on the palace because he was able to jetpack onto the top of the walls. And he was one of the very first to siege the walls. So we know that the Night Lords, while they weren't at the Siege of Terra in great numbers, they were on the front lines fighting.
Right, yeah.
So that's pretty cool because that's just not their style. That leads into the Scouring, which we haven't quite covered yet.
No.
The Night Lords got hit pretty hard during the Scouring, whether that's because the Dark Angels go ham on them after the Thramas Crusade, or whether they get cornered by somebody else, or what happens. Guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
But that led to Conrad being locked in a capsule and shot off into space by Sanguinius.
Just shot off into space.
Which is questionable.
I know. Ben was kind of like, why would they do that? But I like it gives him a very Dracula motif, though, because he's like a discovered coffin that gets opened up.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I just don't know why. Yeah.
Why would Sanguinius do that? I was a little like, why? When I read like who it was.
Maybe there's something we're missing.
There might be.
If there is, let us know.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with the story that led to that.
That's the Imperium Secundus thing.
Gotcha.
Because the Lion basically volunteered to take care of Conrad because, he was like dead. Basically, his spine was broken, his throat was cut. And then I'm kind of fuzzy as to what happens in between that and him being shot off into space by Sanguinius.
Right, and I'm not sure myself.
So let us know.
Yeah.
But also, this is not about Conrad, it's about the Night Lords.
It is.
And they're kind of out of commission until they get a message from Conrad to go to Saguelsa.
Yeah, and that's where I come in.
That is where you come in.
So after the Siege on Terra and the Horus Heresy, the Night Lords, especially comparing them to a lot of the other Traitor Legions, didn't fare that poorly. They actually...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Initially, they still, I probably because of the decision to split them up, retained close to the same numbers they had pre-Heresy.
So then I wonder what caused them to drop so hard in the 42nd millennium.
Well, I have some things that may shed some light on that. Yes. So, but initially they were doing okay. I think to me, it kind of sounds like, and this is my own speculation at this point, that probably Savitar had a pretty solid grip on like leadership. They were still pretty unified in any case, especially by comparison. A lot of the other legions were scattered and fleeing back to the Eye of Terror, and they had set up a secondary kind of base of operations on that
Saguelsa.
Saguelsa, thank you. Also known as the Carrion World, which I like that. That's where they built their Palace of Flesh at some point. The living people. Is that?
Yes.
What I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's where when Conrad woke up from his casket and tortured a poor guy into driving him someplace, that's where he had him taken.
Right.
Was to this new base of operations. And I guess they had still been kind of operating just kind of in general raiding and or terrorizing the eastern part of the galaxy in the meantime. Whatever span of time that was, like it may not have been much time. This is still probably pretty new off the Heresy, is, for all I know, as far as.
Well, we don't have a whole clear time.
Yeah. I don't
know.
They
haven't covered that. We just ended the Horus Heresy. So how far? So that could be that they didn't last that long into the Scouring.
Right, it couldn't have been that long. Yeah, it may not have been. I mean, because I don't know.
So they weren't operating as a legion anymore by the time of the Scouring because they were in the great companies.
Okay,
So that might be why they didn't. So what might be conflating is they didn't do real well in the scouring, but that's just, they might not have sustained heavy losses, but because they were operating in companies, like the Traitor Legion that did the best during the Great Scouring was the Death Guard.
Gotcha.
They stayed in full like Legion formation, and they did a slow, steady march back to the Eye of Terra. Whereas everybody else was basically just hauling ass.
Yeah.
They went to the Ghoul Stars.
Right. Which is probably where this
saga also was.
Yeah. So
I wonder if it's they suffered less losses, but they weren't able to put up much of a fight.
Right. They probably didn't, and they're pretty like terroristy tactics anyway. They're probably not doing a lot of head-on fighting anyway. They're probably terrorizing more and harrying.
And this at this time is where we lose track of Sevatar.
Okay. Yeah. I wondered about him. Yeah.
We don't know. They all say that he died. We haven't covered that yet.
Right.
I'm keeping my fingers, toes, and other floppy parts of my anatomy crossed.
Wow.
That so Sevatar really, really, really hated Conrad, and he hated what the Night Lords became because he still believed in the original mission.
Right, yeah.
I really want Sevatar to have become a Grey Knight.
Ooh, gotcha.
Because we do know that there was a Grey Knight. Of the original Grey Knights, there was a Grey Knight from every Legion.
Okay. So it's got to be
whether they were traitor or not.
Right.
So there was a Knight of Grey, which I can't remember what his name was, but he was a Night Lord. But there had to have been a Grey Knight. And to be a Grey Knight, you had to at least have decent psyker powers, which Sevatar did.
Okay.
He didn't really know it and tried to deny it until he didn't. But
sure,
he has all the makings of a Grey Knight. So I'm really hoping that they faked his death and that he became a loyalist again and became a Grey Knight.
Yeah.
He's the one that had like the future sight, but like without the like schizophrenia that like Conrad had.
No. So Sevatar.
Oh, that's Talos you're thinking?
Talos.
Yeah, Talos.
So, but Talos was around during the Heresy.
Yeah.
He had Conrad's foresight, but it was degrading his gene seed. So he had like basically like tuberculosis.
Oh.
Like he would cough up blood and body parts. But Sevatar was more like a Jedi.
Huh.
He could just kind of inherently get the right call, which is why he was so arrogant. And he actually wasn't a good leader, although he could have been. He was probably autistic. Jago really didn't understand the emotions
right. Okay.
in people. And you would say, okay, psychopath, Night Lord, psychopath. But he actually, when people could express their feelings like in really beautiful or really cohesive ways, he really envied that.
Huh.
And he really wanted to be able to express himself, but he just didn't know how.
No.
So that's autistic, not psychopath.
Huh.
So Jago is a cool character. He is definitely going to get his own episode, the Prince of Crows.
Ooh, nice.
He is. God, I want him to be a Night Lord, a Grey Knight so bad. So bad. I can taste it.
So, okay. So the Night Lords aren't doing so bad when Kurz comes around and they're doing their Night Lord thing. But unfortunately, a pretty big event occurs that shakes up things for the Night Lords for the rest of their existence. Conrad Kurz is assassinated by, is it Mishen?
Mishen?
Mishen, an assassin sent by the Emperor. The Emperor, because he really unleashed like a shitload of assassins out and said, "Go get them."
Oh yeah.
At this point. Yeah.
And at this point, Kurz was a monster.
Yeah.
He was mutated and hunchbacked, and
it was affecting the operations of the Legion. They were much more just like in it for the sake of causing fear and torture instead of that being a means to an end.
Like he was up in a tower. Like Kurz was up in a tower wearing just a tattered cloak, and his arm, like he was all hunchbacked, and his arms had grown out to be longer, and he was eating his troops. They would come in to check on him, and he was in one scene. I want to do I can't wait to do a quote of this, but he sees the Emperor. This is after the Emperor's on the Golden Throne, and he's building a statue of the Emperor out of body parts.
Oh.
And so he would like half eat somebody and then take the parts he needed to build the Emperor. And the Emperor actually visits Conrad, and basically tells him they are sons and that none of them are beyond redemption, not even Conrad. So even if they're dead, they can still be redeemed because their souls still exist in the warp. So Conrad is still out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, full disclosure, though, that it can be interpreted as just his insanity where this conversation occurs. But so people aren't, there's debate.
There is, yes, but
just to be fair, I'm a believer.
Yeah, when the Emperor shows up, like it literally, like his presence, like blows rocks and dust into the air, and we've never seen Conrad's visions have like a physical effect before. Okay. Even though this is like supposed to be at the
peak of his madness.
Yeah, and his psychic, you could argue that his psychic powers are getting stronger.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah. Piss on the parade, Eric. Thanks.
I'm just
it's a beautiful moment where a father talks to his son who's sick.
Who may have been naked.
No, he was wearing a tattered cloth. And it's the last time.
Naked under the cloth.
It's the last time that the personality of Conrad ever appears, because when the Emperor fades, he just goes, "Father?" like question mark, and it's the last time. Like after that, he just slips into full Night Haunter,
like the last gasp of his sanity.
Yeah, of the son that could have been. Oh, so good.
Tragedy. I know. See, before I continue, I will just say one thing I've noticed with the Night Lords and Conrad is like how close their story could have been to a redemption arc. Like there was so much potential for redemption in there, and I think they did that on purpose. They wanted it to be like, oh, you could have been redeemed. How far is too far? Oh, it doesn't matter because you think you've gone too far.
So that leads me to another pet theory of mine that I've been working on in the back of my head that this episode has kind of brought back up. So Jago has red gauntlets, right? Traitor's red gauntlets, which means that he's marked for death by Conrad himself.
Huh.
We don't know what he did to earn the red gauntlets, but we know it was on Istvan 5. Huh. It is for being a traitor and a fool. I don't know why. Something tells me that Sevatar let somebody live that he wasn't supposed to.
Got marked.
And that's part of that possible redemption.
Wow.
Because that's the fool part, right? Like I was foolish and let this person live.
Yeah.
What?
He's a fool and he's a traitor. He fucking cheated. That's what we say about men who are cheaters.
Oh no, the Night Lords are allowed to cheat. They cheat they're murderers, liars. Yeah. The fool part would have been him letting somebody live. They would have considered that foolish.
Well, damn. They just don't play.
No. They skin babies for fun.
Yep.
All right, I'm done interrupting you.
But yeah, I've been sitting on this pet theory that Sevatar let somebody live. And that could be the beginnings of him becoming a Grey Knight. I'm shooting theories to fit my own thing.
That's a neat theory.
Yeah. Anyway.
So after Kurz was assassinated, actually before he was assassinated, he left orders to the Night Lords not to hinder the assassin, in or out. Strict orders. It's also believed, I don't know how confirmed it is, but it was certainly believed by a lot of them that a Night Lord by the name of Zo Sahal, he was the first captain. ZSO is the first name.
Zao Sahal.
Could be that.
Okay.
But he was apparently the one who was supposed to become the new leader of the Night Lords Legion. Talos.
That wouldn't have come from Conrad for sure.
Well, and again, that's why I say, and that's I think why they say, like, it's believed.
Yeah, so, Conrad would have wanted that to be the end of the Night Lords.
Right. But the important part is that they did believe it.
Yeah.
And Talos, here's another interesting. Talos, like, blatantly disobeys Conrad's last order and decides to go after the assassin. And Mr. Zhao and a lot of other high-ranking officers decide to agree with him after they realize that a lot of personal effects and relics of the Night Lords have been stolen by the assassin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these weapons and the crown and all these
trinkets. Yeah, the Night Crown.
Things that you would have used to declare yourself leader. They're like,
oh shit, they're all gone. So this Zhao, whatever, first captain guy, he kind of goes off after her, which I think that kind of hurts his reputation in a big way. But he's got to get that crown to kind of solidify his, role as heir apparent. So apparently he's helping Talos on this quest. And he even does get his hands on the crown and is immediately attacked by Eldar. and escapes into the warp and is caught in a warp storm for 10,000 years.
Oh,
What?
Jesus.
Yeah, so he doesn't do a very good job holding on to that power.
And what's funny is Talos was one of the few that Conrad actually held in personal confidence, and he gave him the nickname Soul Hunter.
Yes.
And Talos would ask him why, and he said, because above everyone else, you will be the only one to pursue one soul above all others.
Oh,
neat. Yes.
And so
And he
Conrad knew that Talos would disobey that final order.
Yeah.
But that's why Conrad kept him in close confidence, because Talos was a true son. He loved Conrad enough to disobey his order, whereas Conrad, and if you've ever met people that suffer from depression, they'll do this. They'll set people up. They'll set tests for people to see if they'll pass, and the person will have no idea that they'll fail, and then they'll hold it against the person that they failed.
Yeah.
That's what Conrad did to the Night Lords. He told them not to do something, knowing that they wouldn't do it. And he's like, see, they don't care about me enough to break my orders. And it's like, dude, you can't do that to people.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, exactly. It's not fair. And Talos does disobey, and he kills the assassin after the fashion of the Night Lords, which I think is beautiful. Beautiful gesture, torturing this person to death.
Yeah, he fucking spits acid in her eyes.
Ooh, really? Nice. Blinding. That's good.
So it's actually a credit to Talos that he's able to kill her, because most Calidus assassins, I believe it's Calidus assassins,
that sounds right.
can just straight up murk Space Marines all day long.
Yeah, they're like highly specialized and trained, aren't they?
Yeah.
Space Marines, though. Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, most of the assassin conclades can just murk Space Marines.
Oh, that's wild.
It's one of the reasons why they exist.
In order to take out bad Space Marines.
Take out, things that are enhanced like that. So the fact that he was able to go, and he did it by systematically removing her senses. He used his scream to make her go deaf, and then he let her stab him so that he could then spit his acid in her eyes, so that then she became blind and deaf.
God damn, that's great. Nice.
Systematically removed her senses till they were on an even playing field.
Nice.
It was Night Lords trilogy. They're fucking great. I love those books.
Yes. Nice. So now that people are off hunting trinkets and assassins, the Night Lords are left leaderless, and over time break up into various war bands. Seems like primarily on like the eastern side of the galaxy is where they've got stuff going on. There's others, there's various Night Lords vying for power. We could go into them, but there's some.
It's ever ebb and flowing.
Yeah. And they're
some of them have joined Abaddon with the Black Crusades, but that's actually quite few.
Yeah.
And that's because most of the ones that do end up becoming corrupted by chaos.
Right.
And the Night Lords still in the 42nd millennium, like 98% of them don't play with chaos.
No, they don't. Although one of the biggest war bands is led by a Night Lord that became a Demon Prince.
The Exalted, Vandred.
Yeah, Vandred. There might be another one I'm thinking of. Let's see. Or perhaps
they call him the Exalted.
Is. The guy I've got is Krieg Acerbus. That's the name I've got.
I'm not
He's
familiar
a demon
with that one.
prince. Yeah, it said he's got the largest.
He's a demon prince.
Yeah. But I know nothing more about it than this guy, except he does work with like Abaddon a lot, stuff like that. Fucking shit up. So yeah, that's what I said. This may be a development as of like Great Rift stuff, which seems newer.
Demon Prince is like what the
Primarchs become. Yeah. I was hoping you would know more about this because I was quite caught off guard by that.
No.
Huh. Yeah. Okay.
So that's news to me.
So further digging will be required there, because I kind of was winding to the end of like the Night Lord's tale as far as we've got it. Like basically from there they became raiders, terrorists, and mercenaries. They'd work with they turn up in a bunch of battles, but it's always like
small
this fraction of them or that fraction of them.
And the last big thing for the Night Lords was Decimus, who is the scion of Talos, who has the foresight with none of the backdraw. So he's much more like Sanguinius in that aspect.
He doesn't have the tuberculosis side effect.
Yeah, the coughing up blood and the losing your marbles for hours and hours and hours,
which is good.
And he is apparently on a crusade to unite the Night Lords back into a legion. That's quite a tongue twister.
Yeah,
unite the Night Lords back into a legion.
Well done.
But they haven't done shit with that, and it actually kind of bunches up my panties. So I really wish they would get on with that.
Yeah, more Night Lord stories, please.
I would like them. As far as I know, they've not done any novels about the Thramas Crusades, which I'm like, really? You have this giant battle in the middle of the Horus Heresy between the Dark Angels and the Night Lords, and you're just like, nah.
We won't touch on that.
It's like, okay, you can't find anything fun to do with that, I guess. Sure. Anyway.
Shame. Yeah, hopefully they will. We'll see.
There is one piece of equipment for the Night Lords, because the Night Lords, they have some interesting patterns, but there's one piece of equipment that really stands out when you're talking about the Night Lords. And I'm like, this is the type of weapon that I would want, and that's the Nostraman chain glaive.
Ooh.
This thing is, you'll find a picture of it right about, and it is a chain blade on the end of a staff. So imagine, the chainsaw on the end of a staff, but on the tip of it is a giant curved blade.
Ugh, curved like a hook, huh?
Yeah, but it's a sweeping hook. So it's like slightly backwards. And so it's a glaive, like a hand glaive or a melee weapon glaive, the pole arm, that has just parts of the chain blade exposed. And I was like, now that's a useful design several feet away.
Yeah, it keeps the enemy farther away from you, which I like.
Yeah.
That is, like, a lot of people say spears are more efficient than swords because of that reason.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you can teach
if I had to fight somebody, I think I would much rather have a spear than a sword.
Yeah, absolutely.
That distance from the enemy keeps you alive and kills them.
So I always found the Nostraman chain glaive to be the most practical of the chain weapons.
Yeah.
If there is such a thing.
Right. I believe we talked about it on the chainsaw.
Oh, I'm sure we did.
Oh, it probably did come up. I think you're right.
I'm sure it did. I would mention it for sure.
Yeah. Love that chain glaive.
Does anybody have anything else?
I like that the Night Lords didn't really mutate a lot when they fell to chaos.
Yeah.
Because they never really picked a specific god to follow.
No, they don't. Yeah, there's one called the Exalted. His name is Vandred. He's pretty mutated.
Yeah,
but it's pretty rare.
But like overall, like they didn't, like as a whole, they did not fall to chaos, but many of them did.
Yeah, but much less than any other traitor unit.
Yeah.
Except for maybe. Oh wow, the Alpha Legion.
Right. Maybe there's that maybe with the Alpha Legion. But yeah, you're right. The mutations they have are like the Nostraman mutations.
Yeah. Like their gene seed kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're a lot like the Space Wolves in that way, that they only... Actually, they're even more stable because they don't have a Wolfen or a Black Rage or a Red Thirst.
They just see good at night.
Yeah, they don't have a flesh change like the Thousand Suns did.
Yeah. They could have had it so easy. So something I have found really interesting is like, again, I brought that up about the redemption kind of theme, but it's like criminals to judges or criminals to enforcers. They're pulling up from, like, on Terra it was the people that were raised in the prison, and Nostromo was prison. Just criminal, and it was like the criminals had a chance to redeem themselves and be a force for law and justice. I guess not so much law, but justice. I suppose.
I think it would have gone hand in hand if things had played out properly.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that. So it was like so close to being this really neat idea of like, you can be the scum and the worst of the worst and still do some good. They could have been that, but instead they're vampires. Ghoulish, horrible vampires.
I love the anti-symmetry between them and the Blood Angels.
Yeah.
Which is probably why, like, the Blood Angels are my favorite Loyalist Legion and the Night Lords are my favorite Traitor Legion.
Oh, yeah.
Right down to their symbols kind of being the antithesis to one another.
That's true.
One's the blood drop of the martyr, although it's sanguineous, but it's still martyr with the radiant white wings, and the other one's the skull of the condemned with the bat wings.
Yeah.
Like angels and demons.
And demons.
I love those two. I would love a book of those two, and they do have a history of fighting, but I would love a Horus Heresy book of them going at each other.
Yeah, there we go.
That would be fun.
Cool. I would like that.
I would take the Night Lords fighting anybody in the Horus Heresy. There's not a lot of them, and I would very much like to see them in actual combat.
Yeah.
And I would really like a book with Loyalist Curse before he fell. I would like an actual novel where it's like, what was Kurz at the height? We have a really beautiful picture it's right there of Kurz with the Night Lords, where he's in his full clean armor and there's no mutations and he's actually smiling and he's holding on like they're getting ready to siege a planet. And you can tell that this is Kurz at the height of his stability.
Yeah.
And I would very much like to see what that looked like.
Yeah, play out in a story for us.
Yeah.
I would like that.
So we could get just the closest glimpse of what could have been.
Yeah.
But that's just me. What do I know? I'm an idiot on the internet.
Give us more stories with Night Lords and Kurz.
Yep.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. They need some love.
Your emphasis or your, what's it called? When you like something a lot.
Enjoyment? Engagement.
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm.
Ben's enthusiasm for these guys had me excited to learn about them, and they did not disappoint.
Enthusiasms.
Yeah.
It's got the
Enthusiasms.
So you enjoy it when people are tortured down to the last man, woman, child, and
it's for a purpose.
Yeah.
It made me feel things.
Yeah. It's kind of a trolley problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Since you brought up I rebel.
Oh, shit.
Fuck your trolley problem.
Oh, come on. It kind of fits here, though.
Fuck I rebel against the trolley problem. Nobody blames the person. Like, everybody just glazes over. They're like, okay, yo, what if some villain put you in a train and it's barreling towards a thing and you had to flip the switch and save the old lady or save a bunch of kids? It's like, you have to, you're going to murder somebody either way. It's like, first of all, motherfucker, I ain't murdering no goddamn person. I'm kidnapped, bitch. If I don't touch that switch and it kills both of them, none of that is on me. It's on the fucking psychopath that kidnapped my ass off that street. There's no moral experiment to be had, bitch. I'm a bystander. So, like, anybody that comes at you with the trolley problem, like, neither. I'm an unwilling participant. I'm not pulling that lever and making me a part of your sick fucking game.
There you go. So the Ben method is to take the thought experiment as literally as you can and make the person asking you just feel like an absolute shit. How dare they pose this? You're a monster. Why would anyone do that?
Let's put the blame where it really needs to go.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
You're cut down to the real issues. Why are these people tied up on the fucking tracks? There's the real villain.
Why are they so easily kidnapped?
Yeah.
Where's their parents?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
This is an outrage.
And where's the security for that nursing home that little old lady came from?
Yeah, exactly. Little old lady.
Because it's like the little old lady on one side or the kids on the other,
like,
and you have to pick which one gets run over.
Wow, it got so specific. I didn't realize. I thought it was just 5 people to one person.
What's this lady's name? Is it Mary?
Oh, don't name her.
Beatrice.
It's not Mary. Beatrice.
Beatrice.
Oh, no. Beatty. No, she had dogs.
She had cats. Let's be honest.
Cats.
She's an old lady. She ain't got dogs. She got cats.
There's nothing wrong with having
being
cats.
a friend.
Okay, so wrap up stuff time. I take it. I think it's time for wrap up stuff time. Listen, if you're still listening at this point,
you're a true. Actually, leave us a comment section to let us know that you got to Jerry singing "Thank you for being a friend."
There we go. We'll know what you mean.
The road and back again.
Not the first one. I'm not gonna make that.
Don't timestamp it though for people. They'll know. Then they're cheating.
That's cheating.
It's an Easter egg.
It's an Easter egg. Exactly. Even though it's not Easter, don't get your hopes up. There's no chocolate coming from us. Get fucked.
I have to poop.
Okay, so I'll hurry up then.
Chocolate.
As you can tell, it's been a while. We're knocking the rust off.
Yeah, good Lord. So, as you can see, we are Cult of Lore. We have plenty of other Cult of Lore episodes that you can check out. If this is the first time that you're finding us, we have all sorts of Warhammer content where we cover and review and discuss different factions in Warhammer and so forth and so on. We also branch out into mythologies and other fictions, so you can look for those. We've got some holiday specials like Krampus and stuff like that. Irish mythology, we've done that twice now because we love it.
American Tall Tales, people really like that.
Oh, yeah. And
that
was
did
a
well.
good one.
We're going to cover that again this year.
Oh, yep. So
that did surprise me. That one.
I was surprised by that. That had a great showing. So,
there's a weird reaction to that one.
A
lot of put some flags in the comment section if you're one of the ones that really like that episode.
There you go. Oh, and at this point, you've heard that we've covered Helldivers, so look for a few more of those coming out.
Oh, definitely.
Got some content.
Cannibal Monsters.
Oh, Cannibal Monsters.
That was
fun. That was a good one. It's like Cannibal Monsters from mythology. So anyway, there's also other shows on Cult Talk Net, such as Cult Talk's Conspiracy, where they talk about various conspiracy theories as well as cryptids and UFOs. And it's a lot of fun to listen to and very intriguing, very, very interesting stuff. We also review movies on the Cult of Campbell, where we watch Bruce Campbell movies and talk about them. And that's a load of fun. As well as there's a mini series of American Pie. So we have a lot of shows, guys. Check us out. You might find something you like. Like, comment, share, and all that. I won't drag that part out any longer. So yeah, thank you. I'll say thank you.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Another episode of Call Lore. We'll see you next time. Until then, I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
And thank you for being a friend.